Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shape them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Hi, Monica. Welcome.
Hello. How are you, Sarah?
Great. Thank you. So you are someone who's taken on life or two of life's biggest adventure, marriage and business, and you turn them into a powerful mission of helping others. You are a successful business owner, an author, and a relationship coach. In the past, you had a business, you launched a business that you ended up selling, and you pivoted towards something deeply personal, helping couples, and more specifically, couples who work together, rebuild connection and intimacy. You are the author of Bad Marriage Advice, and you're the podcast host of The Secrets of Happily Ever After. They are both guides rooted in real life challenges and triumph. I'm glad to have you here. Welcome.
Oh, I love that intro. Thank you so much. I feel very welcome.
Let's start by getting to know you a little better. Can you tell us a little more about where you grew up? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I had amazing parents who, let me dream as a little girl. I used to feel like I was living in a fairy tale, and I was obsessed with love stories, both romantic comedies and fairy tales. But when I turned 12, my parents announced that they were getting a divorce. And I remember thinking, wait a second, that's not how the story is supposed to go. And from then on, I just was obsessed with relationships. I used to watch my friends' parents, and I started to notice that not very many people seemed very happy with each other. So my friends' parents were either divorced or they seemed very unhappy. And so I kind of was on a mission to see if this happily ever after was even really a thing. So I studied sociology and child development at the University of Texas in Austin with the plan of becoming a social worker because I wanted to help families be strong and connected. And then I graduated and I met my husband. And so we started our own little family. We have 4 children. They are mostly grown now. I have an adult son who's married. I have a daughter who's graduating from high school in a couple of weeks. And then I have a almost junior and almost 8th grader. So darling kids, love them to pieces. And as you said, I started a business when I was a young mom because, let me back up. When my husband and I got married, we started a business together. So we had many years of working together. After I had my 3rd baby, I was like, you've got to take something off my plate because you're either going to check me into the loony bin or, we've got to find somebody else to do the things that I do in the business. So he basically pulled me out. I worked behind the scenes a little bit when needed here or there, and I trained a lot of people and things like that. But I was mostly home with my kids, which is the hardest job literally ever.
Yes.
And so I needed something a little bit for me. So I started kind of a crafting business. I used to make those wooden signs with cute vinyl sayings on them and sell them. And then I created a boutique business where I would get a whole bunch of people who made homemade decor and food goods and just fun things to sell, mostly moms like me who just needed a creative outlet while they were raising their kids. And I would 3 times a year put them all together into like a shop where you could come, I would do all the marketing and people would come and buy things for the weekend. And then we would, divide out the money between everyone. So that was the business that I sold when my last baby went to kindergarten and I went back to school to become a marriage and family therapist. And I ended up dropping out of school because I didn't want to be a therapist. and becoming a coach. So I really, really wanted to help people not get to the breaking point.
Yes.
But now, after doing that for 7 years, I realized that most couples wait too long to get help. And so now I am trained in what's called relational life therapy. And I do help couples on the brink of divorce and really struggling in their marriage. So that has been a passion of mine since I was a little girl, and it's such an honor to be able to walk with couples through some of the hardest times of their lives.
Of course. What is the difference between therapy and coaching?
Yeah, so the lines get pretty blurred. Therapy deals more with kind of the past and trauma. Therapy teaches some skills, but coaching is more in the here and now, like what can we do now. However, relational life therapy and coaching is what I do now, and we do deal with. We believe that the coping mechanisms you learned as a child to kind of get through in your family of origin,
Hmm.
those are the things that show up in your relationship now and kind of make a mess of things. And so we do talk a lot about that inner child and growing up and what your experience was there. So it does get a little bit blurred, but we also teach a lot of skills that you can use now to have effective relationships. And the thing is that nobody teaches you how to have a great relationship. Like it's very, I feel like it should be taught in schools, but most people grow up and don't learn really relational skills. So it's important to be learning and teaching those things all along.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with a lot of clients who have been in therapy for years and years and years, and they've learned skills. But here is the problem is that when you are in conflict with your partner and you get triggered, when those old childhood wounds and traumas get triggered inside of you, the only thing your brain is thinking about is protection. It doesn't it can't access all of those skills. So you could have all the skills in the world. You could listen to all the podcasts and read all the books and go to all the therapy and know all of the skills. But when you're triggered like that, you're not going to use them. You just want to protect yourself and get out of the situation or fight, flight, fawn, or flee, right? Those are, the kind of the amygdala,
Yes.
is activated and you just want to protect yourself. And that's when it becomes important to recognize what are your experiences growing up? How did you kind of grow up learning how to deal with conflict, learning how to deal with discomfort? And those are the things that are going to show up in your relationship now. So once we get a handle on those things, once we can see them, we can start to make choices. So you
Yes.
can recognize, okay, I'm activated, I'm triggered, it's that little girl inside of me that's taking over right now that just wants to protect me from danger, which your spouse, by the way, hopefully isn't dangerous, but it feels dangerous when you're in conflict with them, right? So once you can see that, that's the skill. That's like being able to recognize, okay, I'm triggered. This is my go-to move when I'm triggered, and it's not effective in my relationship. Like it's not going to get me what I actually want. So now that I can recognize that, I can make a different choice. And that's what ultimately changes the dynamics in the relationship and then allows you access to all of those good relational skills.
And you've been talking about a lot of, I would say, a certain pattern that people go through, once again through childhood and what they've been through. But yet you focus mainly on couple who work together. Is there a reason for that?
Well, mostly because that's been my experience with my husband. And I learned a lot about myself and my own wounds and triggers in that process. So just naturally, that's who I, am drawn to and who is drawn to me is couples that work together. But I work with a broad range of couples, but that's just my experience is working with my husband. And so I know we are very, very, very different and we deal with things in a very different way. And so that, having conflict in business and then going home and like trying to raise the kids together and like having conflicts there, it's a dynamic that, I understand and I've been through. And so that's why I love to work with entrepreneurs who either work together or don't, because we've done both. We have two separate businesses now, but we started a business together. So we've kind of done the whole wide range of that.
Did you always know you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
It's crazy because from a very young age, when I was in high school, I remember selling t-shirts and I would mark them up, so to all the sporting events, like we would, make t-shirts and so everybody in the crowd would be wearing the same t-shirts and I would mark them up so that I had a little bit for myself. So I started really young, feeling like I needed to make my own money. And that is because of my childhood trauma and experience. So yeah, I've always kind of been really, used my creativity in that way. I've always been a visionary and very entrepreneurial.
And you met somebody who has the same mindset than you.
So crazy, right? Yeah, he is a super hard worker, but we come from two very different backgrounds. So the way we see things and approach things is totally different. He's like a get in there and grind and work hard, and that's how you get it done. Whereas I'm like, let's step back for a second. Maybe there's an easier way where we don't have to break our backs to do this task. And so we do butt heads quite often.
Okay. I mean, it takes a little bit of that, right? To spice up
Yes.
the relationship. And you ended up selling your first business though. What got you to this point in life where you said, "All right, I want to sell my business and I want to pivot towards something a little different."
Yeah. So it really had just kind of run its course. Like I did the boutique for 12 years and it was so awesome for that season and stage of my life. I learned so much. I made such great connections. It was perfect for me when I had young kids afoot, and late at night, my husband and I would watch a movie and I have a really hard time just sitting and watching a movie. I needed to be doing something with my hands. And so, I'd be weeding the vinyl and, making things like that. So it kind of served its purpose, but I really did return to what my first passion is and always has been. And that is like making great marriages. But also, that 12 years that I was doing the boutique was really hard on my marriage. And so I had to learn a lot about myself and about my husband and about working together and, collaborating on things. And so I wanted to take all of that experience and knowledge and help others with it.
When you decided to, because you've taken on a business where its sales are the main goal and now you're helping people, so there is a philanthropic side to the business you run right now. Did you feel a call to this, to take this path?
I did feel very called. And when I first started, I used to say all the time, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. Like, I don't even want to make any money. And I have been very blessed. The business that my husband started has truly supported our family. So I never have had to make a lot of money. But I've learned that when people pay, they pay attention. And so if you don't charge, if you're just giving everything, I do give a lot away for free. But if they're not paying you to help them, they don't often change behavior. They're not properly like invested and
That's
motivated to do
interesting.
the hard work that is, working on your marriage. So I have learned to charge and I've learned the benefits of charging. And my business now is self-sufficient. We don't invest any family money into my business anymore. So it has been really helpful, but a big eye-opening learning experience for me too.
I'm a business minded person as well, and I appreciate the fact that you were also able to be financially stable before to start an altruistic business? Because I know it's not easy to sometimes support financially, a business that comes with building, a network relationship and getting known out there. So I can appreciate the fact that you didn't take the route of doing right away what you wanted to do, but it was still in the back of your mind and you are just waiting for the right time to manifest it. It's uh it's incredible also that you are able to rely on your own successes and overcoming your own obstacles to shape the way you are helping right now couples. And this leads me to my next question. I always wonder if there is a similar pattern in that you can pick on and say, all right, couples always have this issue in common, and how do you tackle it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I would say 98% of the couples that come to see me, I always ask them, what brought you to this place and what do you need the most help with? And almost all of them will answer communication. We struggle with
Oh,
communication.
yes.
That's a really difficult thing. And also the book that I wrote, Bad Marriage Advice, kind of the through line, so like the cheat code throughout the whole book is that the bad marriage advice dampers communication, whereas the skill sets that you learn instead all um, help better your communication skills. So it's not just about like how you talk to each other and things like that, but really I would say that modern marriage demands a lot from us. So it used to be that couples just got married out of convenience. It was like two people doing the work of life together because they needed each other. But modern marriage is not like that. Most modern couples don't need each other. They're pretty self-sufficient on their own. They have to learn to choose to be
Wait, can you
together.
repeat that? Can you repeat what you just said? I love it that people don't need each other.
Yeah. Well, the reality is what we want from our marriages now is we want a best friend, we want a lover, we want a companion, we want an adventure buddy, we want somebody who's going to challenge us and help us grow and become the best version of ourselves. And it's hard to meet all of the demands of modern marriage. It's not just like, the husband goes to work and the wife stays home and raises the kids and, you just get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? That's how marriage used to be. But now we want so much more. And now
The
you have
expectations are higher.
much higher. And you have mostly two earner income families. And so people have gotten to the point where they're like, I don't want to deal with your crap, right? Like it's hard to stay happily married over decades because marriage is hard. Relationships are disappointing. There's always going to be challenges that you have to overcome. And if you don't grow closer through the challenges, they're going to tear you apart. And for the most part, the way, marriage law is now and, uh, couples who two income earning families, it just feels easier to start over with somebody else rather than to fix what needs repair in the primary relationship.
So the common pattern is high expectations.
Yes, and with high expectations, you need really good communication skills.
And the high expectations come directly from the fact that people are financially more independent.
I mean, that's part of it. Yes. I mean, we don't depend on each other for our financial well being as much anymore as we used to. So it does make it easier.
To just give up and try something different.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just human to think that the grass is greener on the other side. So if our spouse isn't doing all the things we think they should be doing and performing all of the functions we think that they should, we think maybe we can find somebody else who's going to be a better fit. And that's what's difficult is because, the same patterns and dynamics that we bring into our first marriage, we're going to bring into our second and our third and our fourth, unless we figure those out and we heal. So, it's whether you heal with your first marriage while you're single, your second, third, fourth, down the line.
Why do you think that people don't look for counseling first before to make all the drastic decisions?
That's a really great question. I think there's lots of things that go into that. One, I think counseling has a little bit of a bad rap. I think that people don't um, always trust it. I think that people wait a really long time to get help. And so they've been in pain for so long that it seems hopeless to them. I think that it's very vulnerable. People feel like it's weak to ask for help when in reality it's so strong. And then again, I feel like it's just easier. I think people feel like it's just easier, to start again. It's kind of like this idea that, if a light bulb goes out, do you replace the light bulb or do you just find a different house? Like, it's like, I think people sometimes take drastic measures and they take themselves out of perfectly workable relationships.
I like that analogy. It's really specific to the situation. Is sometimes you don't need to replace the whole house. It's only about replacing the dysfunctioning bulb. And last time we had a conversation, you brought a very interesting point, being that men are the one who seek more your help than women. So we would think that it's probably the other way around because women tend to have this need of trying to nurture a relationship and fix what they can fix. And then you told me about that and I was surprised. What do you think that is?
As the men that I have had the opportunity to work with that are seeking help, they really love their wives. And I think what happens is over time, and we'll go back to the house analogy, is you've raised your kids together and you've gone through so much, and after 20, 30 years, your house needs some renovation, right? Like, you've got to replace the floors, it needs a new coat of paint. You've got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and work on it, right? And so I think a lot of men are like, I'm willing to push up my sleeves and do the work because I actually do really love this woman. Maybe I'm not happy in the marriage, maybe I'm not getting everything that I want, but I do really love this house or this woman. Whereas women sometimes are like, you know what? I'm just going to find another house. And I don't think that's always the case, but I do think that happens quite often is like, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to rip out the floors and put on a new coat of paint? Or do you feel like this house is just too far gone and you've got to find something else?
That's very surprising. I really, really expected women to maybe be the one who would initiate that move. The thing is, I have the impression that sometimes, and this is just my personal opinion, but women have too much on their plate, especially when they have children, and then they end up, having to care for their children, and then they feel that maybe the husband is not helping as much, so they reach the snapping point faster, I think, that husband sometimes because they just don't see what's wrong, and then when it just you know explodes, now they're like, "Oh, where did that come from?" Or I saw it coming, but not that much or that strongly. So it's maybe also once again the perception of what a marriage should be. Obviously, it's just my personal opinion, but this is what I've noticed is that men maybe look for help because they didn't see it coming the way it was coming to them.
No, you're so right. You bring up a really, really important point, and that is women do typically sacrifice more with children and when the children come, right? They'll put their careers on the back seat, they'll sacrifice more of, even physically their bodies and their time and energy to raise these children. And then, yes, it's like they snap if they haven't been communicating, if they haven't been asking for help, if they haven't been, working together with their spouse, then yeah, you're right. They get to the end of their rope. They feel like they've given so much and they can't afford to give any more. And you're right. The husbands are like, whoa, what happened? Like, I thought we were happy. I thought you were happy. And the mom has like thrown her energy and attention and all of her love into these kids. And then these kids grow up And then the mom is left like, what's left of my life? I've given so much and I'm not getting what I want in return. Right. And so you're right. That happens way more often than we realize.
I think that sometimes there is a lot of pressure, and I was talking about it with a life coach, and she was talking about just life expectations when it comes to being a woman, and in society. And indeed, especially with financial freedom, sometimes it just leaves you with very short options in and maybe not wanting to work on certain things because you're over it. You deserve better and you know it, and you want to turn the page of the book and just be happy finally. So it's incredible. What would you suggest to a woman who is going through a down moment like that in her life? When would be the right time for her to start expressing herself and seek counseling?
Oh, well, the right time to start expressing yourself is right when you get married. I mean, you want to always be communicating, right? And so I think that's so important is to learn how to ask for help, is to, express to your partner what it is that you're actually going through, what you feel like you're sacrificing, how can they help you so that you don't get to that point? Because I do think that is that critical point. And I think a lot of women do say to themselves, like, I'm not happy here, but I'm going to raise these kids. And once these kids leave the house, I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've had where the wife is like, if things don't change when these kids grow up, I'm out of here. Right. And so they've kind of held it in for so long. They haven't been able to talk about the things that are bothering them. They haven't been able to ask their partner for more help or what they need or for the things that they want to be different. And so that's what happens is the kids leave and they're like, time to go. But I would say that the most important time to ask for help is as soon as you realize that you're not happy, that you're not getting what you want out of the relationship, that there are things that you would like for your partner to change. That's when you should go seek help, because learning how to communicate those things skillfully, learning how to repair after conflict, learning how to, which is, so there's something I call relational reckoning, which is a concept developed by Terry Real, who is the creator of relational life therapy. But relational reckoning is being able to ask, is there enough good here to grieve what I'm not getting in this relationship? And if you can start early doing that and then asking for what it is that you are, feeling like you need to grieve, then a lot of those things can be rectified before you get to that breaking point.
So it's not only that you can't put the blame on the partner only, you also have to figure out, like you mentioned before, what is going on with you. First of all, to not repeat the same pattern, but at the same time also because there is healing to be done.
Yeah. I mean, your partner can't read your mind. And I think so many of us go into marriage just thinking, well, if my partner loves me, they'll just know how to make me happy.
Oh
But
yes, oh yes, I can recognize that thought.
yeah, so that's like the second chapter of my book. But there's two things wrong with that. One, your partner can't read your mind. There's no way for them to know what it is that you want, need, or desire. And number two, happiness is an inside job. Even if they knew what would make you happy, they can't create your happiness. You have to learn to do that on your own. And so, you bring to the relationship your level of happiness and content, and being able to express and communicate, you know, what you need, what you desire, how your partner can help you. It's called a mechanism repair. It's kind of like a steering wheel, right? Like, if you start to get off course, if the car doesn't have a steering wheel, there's no way to correct it. But if you have a steering wheel, you can say, hey, honey, I feel like I'd like to spend more time with you, or I feel like, we could be doing this differently with the children, or I really feel like this is important for us to look into together, or whatever. But if there's no steering wheel, there's no mechanism of repair, you just go off the road and crash in a big fiery, explosion. And that's not good for anyone.
You mentioned that you have to know about your own happiness before getting into a relationship. What does that mean exactly?
Well, not necessarily before getting into a relationship. I mean, that's ideal. It would be ideal if we knew how to make ourselves 100% happy before we got into a relationship with another person. But that's also going to change and grow and evolve over time. So, what is important is that we know how to self-reflect, that we know how to self-confront, that we know how to spend some time with ourselves and figure out, like, I'm not happy. What is it that I'm not happy about? And how can I give myself more of what I need? Because your partner can do all the right things, but if you don't know how to make yourself happy, you'll never be happy. There's nothing your partner can give you that's going to fill that void for you, right?
Yes, it's a powerful message, truly and sincerely, that your partner can do all the right things and you still cannot be happy. So you have to figure things out for yourself and then learn how to communicate it once you figured it out. And what would be a good tip, for example, for a woman who is in this situation and say, "Oh, right, but how do I find out that I'm the one who is supposed to understand what is the true meaning of happiness for myself?" It is something that, for example, does she have to go to therapy? Does she need to change something in her life? Does she need to distance herself from her husband? Maybe do they need to separate for a while? What would be a good way for her to find out what is truly happiness for her and learn how to communicate it as well?
I mean, it could be any or all of those things. I don't necessarily think you need to, like, physically distance yourself from your husband, but you might need to ask for some space. You may need to say, "Hey, I'm in a bad spot here. I need to figure out, myself and what's going on within me, because I'm not happy, and that's not your fault, but I need to figure out what's going on with me." So for an example, after I had maybe my second baby, I had postpartum so badly that my husband sent me home for 2 weeks to live with my mom, and I needed that time to be able to heal myself. I was in such a bad place. I couldn't take care of myself, I couldn't take care of my family. My husband was doing everything, and in my opinion, he was doing everything wrong, right? Like, I wasn't happy. And so I had to, like, get some, yeah, you're right. I had to get some, like, physical distance. Not that we separated, we were still, married, but I needed to get clear on, like, what is going on with me and how do I fix it? Because I was the only one who could fix it. And that is the reality. My husband could have been doing everything right. He could have known all the right answers, but he was never going to be able to fix it. That was my trauma coming out. That was my healing that needed to happen. And I was able to do that with my mom and, like, that kind of safe environment. And I'm so, 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 so grateful that he stuck with me through all of that, right? Like, that happened a few times in our marriage and life and raising our children together. I come from a little bit of a trauma background. And so, I have huge abandonment issues and just things that I needed to work out on my own. And so my husband did have to give me kind of the space and opportunity to be able to do that. But here's what kept us connected through all of that was communication. I had to learn at some point to be able to say, I need help. This isn't working for me. Like, this is what's going on inside of me. This is triggering my abandonment issues. This is my biggest fear. And he listened, and we were able to work through it together. Not that he healed me or fixed me, but he was able to give me the support so I could heal and fix myself.
I absolutely agree with what you just said. It's all about companionship. sometimes. It's not about a husband and a wife. Those are just two titles that are meant to explain the relationship you're in, but it encompasses so much more. And I've noticed that sometimes husbands tend to tiptoe around women. First of all, because they don't know what the woman is going through. They just don't think the same way. So they're not sure on how to handle that. But at the same time, it takes just a question or just this inquisitive spirit of trying to understand what she's going through to make her feel loved and make her feel safe enough to communicate. And I think that men, they still have to work. There is a long way for them to go to get to that point. And I'm not sure exactly why is that, but this is going to bring me to my next question. Why do you think that is, that there is just no education about being in a relationship, in a romantic relationship?
Yeah, I don't know why there's not more education about that. I do know men are it's getting better. I think that it's getting better. But I do think men are raised to be tough, not show their feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like it is harder for a man. Like my husband, like he when we first got married, he did not do crying. Like if I was crying, he was like, I got to go to the other room. Like, you got to figure that out. I don't know what to do for you. Right. Like, he just didn't do big displays of emotion and crying. And that was like sometimes all I could do was to just bawl out crying. Right. And so, one of the things I had to learn how to do was regulate my emotions, like, settle down and figure out why am I crying? What is it that I need right now? And be able to communicate that to him. Right. And so one of my biggest fears was that he was going to leave me. That was my experience. My dad at some point left my mom. My grandpa at some point left my grandma. Like, that was the pattern I saw generationally. That was my trauma. And so I finally learned how to say to him, you know what? When you leave the room and I'm upset, or when you go to sleep and I'm still upset, or, when you can't handle my big emotions, it triggers all of my abandonment issues. And I'm afraid you're going to leave me. And he, when I could say that in a way that he could hear it, he was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. Right. And so, we over time got to a point where he could tell when I was triggered like that, when that fear would take over and I was not behaving out of, like, my adult wise brain that could, take in everything that was happening. It was like, I'm that little girl and I'm so afraid that the people I love are going to leave me right now. And he would be able to see that and he'd say, nothing here is urgent. I'm not going anywhere. Like, don't worry. I love you. Like, we're going to figure this out and I'm not going anywhere. But I had to be able to communicate that need to him. And once he understood it, he could give that to me. He could give me the reassurance that, yeah, we might be in this big knockdown, drag out fight, and we've got to figure out how to work it out, but he's not going anywhere. And so my whole body, my nervous system, my amygdala, everything could just relax, calm down. And then I could think logically through, like, what is actually happening here? Not like he's packing his bags and he's halfway to Mexico.
That's wonderful that you were able to express that to him. It's a thought process, I think, that a lot of people don't go through, only because sometimes it's very painful or it doesn't resonate with who we are, because on a daily basis, we are very reasonable people. And then when it comes to relationships, we feel that if you feel a certain way, it's because they made you feel that way. You would not feel that way if they did not trigger something about it. So now you are in a mode where you are, if he loves me, why is he hurting me? Or why is she hurting me, in a, depending, in the relationship you're in. It sounds very obvious, but sometimes when we are really in the situation, everything is blurred. Nothing seems logical because there is a lot of feelings and emotions involved. And what you mentioned about bad advices, I want to know more about your book. What can you give us examples of those advices that we should never listen to?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, and they're little cliches that people say all the time. But I want to respond to something you said with some of that bad marriage advice. But I'll give you here's like a bunch of just cliches that people say, well meaning advice, right? People think that they're helping with this advice, but it's actually just very bad advice. But it's like the don't go to bed angry, don't sweat the small stuff, happy wife, happy life, learn how to compromise. All of those are terrible, terrible pieces of advice and will cause a lot of pain. But what we were just talking about, there's a whole chapter in the book about this idea that if you married the right partner, they won't hurt you. And here's the like hard, bitter pill to swallow. Relationships, especially good relationships, are disappointing and painful at times. And here's the thing, that this is what Terry Real calls the mysticism of marriage. So you marry, you're at most attracted to, and you end up marrying someone who is enough like what you came from to really hurt you and give you the opportunity to heal. So that's what's so cool. So there's hundreds of people out there in the world who probably would never hurt you, who would never poke you or stick you right where it hurts. But you weren't attracted to those people. Those people just walked on by and you never gave them a second thought. It was that guy or that girl who was enough like the situation that you grew up in that they would be able to poke you and prod you in all of those wounds and raw spots where it really hurts. But they give you the opportunity to heal that, because if they never triggered you, you wouldn't be able to heal those wounds. So they trigger you because they're enough like your family of origin. But hopefully, if you get lucky, which most of us do, they have resources that your family didn't have. So, like I told you, my husband would get me right where it hurts because he would turn and walk away from me when I would start crying, or, if I was upset about something, he would withdraw from the situation, which was enough like what I was used to growing up. But when I told him how that affected me, he had the resources to be able to say, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to do that to you. I love you. So I was able to heal all of those wounds. So I don't walk around afraid that the people I love the most are going to walk away from me now. I know that people come in and out of my life for very good reasons. And if they choose to walk away, then that was their time to exit anyways, right? But my husband, the one who I love more than anything in the world, he's not going anywhere. He's made that very clear. And so we can get in the worst fight ever. I mean, we can go days, which we don't because we know how to repair. But if we were to go days without talking to each other, I would never fear that he wasn't coming back to me.
You understand that it's part of the process.
It's healing. It's so healing. Like he poked me enough times that I was able to look at that and go, this really hurts. So my options here are to, withdraw or to heal this. It's to really, and so it doesn't hurt me anymore. Like there's very few things that really, really hurt me anymore because I've been able to look at those wounds, feel them, and heal them.
I love this perspective because it makes me think of emotional maturity not being something that you acquire, but something that you work on and learn to tame over time.
And you have to be in pain to be able to do that.
It's makes me think of a rebirth, like a phoenix. You burn and it hurts, and then you become just more beautiful than ever. And life is like that, right? It's all about getting hurt, and you have two choices. It's either you stay down and you think this was against you, or you learn from it, and you just go on in life with a personality that is more developed that he was, right?
Yes. And I love the visual of a phoenix rising from the ashes. There's also like the idea of a butterfly, right? Like it's dark and scary and there you're a fat caterpillar. Like what's your purpose? And you go in that cocoon and it's lonely and it's dark and it's cold in there and there's no food, but you come out a butterfly. Or another like really relatable analogy that people can see is like going to the gym. Like you don't get the payoff without doing the work, right? You break down your muscles and they're sore and they hurt, but they build back stronger. It's the same with your emotional maturity. Like you have to do the reps in the gym. You have to break them down to build them back up.
And you know what's fun with emotional maturity is that if you take this lesson for what it is, either the person stays or goes, you got a part of the deal to yourself. You've grown, and now you're more complete for the next relationship, like you mentioned before. So you're winning either way. Why do you think that when did you realize that all the advice people were giving to married couple were crap?
Well, in my marriage when it wasn't working, and I was like, this isn't working. I don't get it. What are we doing wrong here? Right. And it was just, I really started to realize that the litmus test is, does it make you communicate better or does it make you communicate worse? So if you think about any of those pieces of advice, like don't sweat the small stuff, that's terrible advice. Of course, you should sweat the small stuff because the small stuff becomes the big stuff. So, do you want to deal with it when it's a seed or do you want to deal with it when it's a weed, right? Like, if you just don't sweat the small stuff, it will grow, it will become the big stuff, and it's going to start choking out all the other things. So, I'm not saying just pop off every time something you don't like happens, but learn how to skillfully address the small stuff. You don't have to sweat it, but you should skillfully address it with your partner, right? So that's just a small example, but every single one of them, you can look at it and be like, well, yeah, if I just do it that way, then I'm not communicating. If I learn how to communicate well and skillfully, that's a better way.
What is a typical program of getting in contact with you and then going through the healing process and the reconnecting on the intimacy also, because we haven't talked about it, but on the intimate level and then the connection in general?
Yeah. So the best way to contact me is through my website, monicatanner.com. You can go and schedule a 30-minute complimentary call with me. We can go through, what it is that you want to work on in your relationship, whether I'm qualified to help you with that or not. And there's two ways to work with me. So one way is through weekly appointments, weekly hourly appointments, which is just a very, natural, normal way to work with a therapist or a coach. And then the other way is through a coaching intensive. So that's when I meet with a couple for 3 days straight and we dive really, really, really deep into an issue. This is also like a specific issue like intimacy or like trying to make decisions together. Or this is also really effective if you're feeling like divorce is an option, like your next step, or if you're really busy, like you own a business together and you can't just take time out weekly. If you really want to dive deep fast and get a lot of work and a lot of healing done, then those coaching intensives are really important. So yeah, weekly coaching or coaching intensives are the two best ways to work.
When people come and work with you, when you talk about intimacy, how far or how superficial this conversation is, so they can have an idea of what they can get?
Yeah, it's really
Because sometimes
hard.
it's a little taboo, so I
It
wanted to
is.
know.
It is. But here's the thing. It's really hard to have a happy marriage without the sexual component of it. I mean, marriage is a sexual relationship. And so, when you say I do or whatever you say at the altar when you choose to be together, you're saying I want to be together with you emotionally, physically, sexually, and all the ways, right? And so most couples who come to me do get to the point where we start talking about intimacy, and nothing is really off limits. I mean, if we get to an area of intimacy that is not my specialty, which there are some, I will help you find somebody who is qualified to work on that level. But intimacy is really important. And I think one place where therapists or traditional therapy goes wrong is there's this idea that if you work on the emotional relationship, the sexual relationship will just follow. And I have learned through training and also working with couples that that's not the case, that they're two different things. You can work on the emotional part of the relationship, but you also have to work on the sexual part of the relationship. They are mutually exclusive. It's not like one gets better and the other one just follows.
It's very interesting because I had this conversation with a colleague. Actually, he is separated right now, and we never had this conversation before. But he ended up telling me about how he tried to communicate with his wife, and she was not open to having certain conversation with him, and he just built up over time, and the gap became just greater and greater between them, and they ended up not loving each other anymore. And I couldn't reconcile his version with the word love, because I wasn't sure, once again, if it was a word, if it was the lack of communication, or if it was the lack of I'm going to say the lack of expectation from a man to a woman, or maybe from a woman to a man. So if now you had to be in the situation where you were talking to my colleague, for example, and you had this feedback from him, what would you tell him?
I would actually love to talk to your colleague, actually, especially if he's separated and it's not final. There's still work that we could
It's
do
final,
together.
but
Oh, okay.
yeah, unfortunately, it's final. Yes, he's already with somebody else at this point. Probably happier also because he was able to express what he wanted from day one. But he just it's just sad for his first marriage, right? Because he had children with his wife, and I wasn't sure if now they ever even knew that about each other when they first got married.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the reality is learning how to talk about those things, discuss those things, your needs, your wants, like creating a safe environment for both of you to talk about what sexuality means to you, how important it is to you, what you expect from it is so important and something
From
that
the
most
beginning.
yes, from the beginning, but it's something that most people come to marriage not able to do, right? It's like not something that we learn from our parents or get taught anywhere else. It's really interesting because my daughter right now is in the kind of sex education part of her health class. And so we've been talking a lot about anatomy and sexually transmitted diseases and birth control and all of these things. But nowhere in her curriculum is she learning how to talk about what it means to be a sexual being, how important sexuality is. And so, as her mom, I talked to her. We had great conversations about how important sex is, especially in a marriage. But I promised
Was
her,
your
I'm like,
daughter? That's great.
yes. And I
Wow.
promised her, I said, I will not let you get married without talking to you about, all of the things surrounding your sexuality, what it means to have a sexually enjoyable marriage. Like it's really fun and it's really fulfilling and it can be really wonderful, but you have to be able to talk about it. Like one of the things I work with all of my clients is to set up a time every single week where you can connect on how your sexual relationship is going. Because when it, like if you have a really good relationship, this is all like statistical, like studies show that in a really good relationship, sex is a small part of it, but when things start to go wrong, sex is a really big part of it. And so being able to communicate about your needs, your wants, your desires, and all of that becomes so crucial.
So I know you answered a little bit the question, but how much do you think? this your knowledge is going to benefit your children. And your son just got married, so congratulations for that. Do you see them already stepping forward with all the necessary advice they need for a healthier relationship?
So I wrote this book for my son. So really what happened was he and his fiance were so young. And I sat down when he told me he wanted to marry her, which I was like, great, awesome decision. She's wonderful. They're going to be wonderful. But I sat down to kind of write him a letter of my advice and the things I'd learned and the things that I just wanted to make sure he knew. And that letter turned into this book. So it was so fun. And his wedding was just about a week ago. They're still on their honeymoon right now. And my book is not like the book is completed, but it's still going through editing and design and all of those things. So I didn't have it ready to give to them on their wedding day. However, um, they'll have it this summer. So they won't be married for too long before they'll have access to the actual book. But I've been teaching these things to him his whole life. And
Oh,
so
that's great.
it was so sweet at the wedding when we had our mother son dance, we talked about it, like how ready he was. And, that he spent the night with us right before we got married. And I did say, like, now's your opportunity. You have me and dad. You can ask any questions, if there's anything you want to know. And, he was very gracious and he was just like, you've taught me so much. I'm so excited. Me and my fiance, we've talked a lot about it. And so we feel ready or whatever. But above all else, I've communicated with him enough and my daughters, all of my children, to know that if they have questions, they can always come to me. And I've been married for 23 years. And so for 23 years, this is, going to make the teenagers cringe, but I've been having sex with my husband for 23 years. We've learned a lot about it. Not only have we been doing it, but we've been talking about it. We've been kind of perfecting it. We enjoy it. It's something that we look forward to doing together. And I told my daughter this when we were studying for her exam. I said, life is hard work. It doesn't always go the way you planned. There's lots of challenges, lots of things that are difficult. And having sex with your spouse, it's like getting to play. Like it's the reward for getting through all the really difficult things. It's like where you get to go into your own little space and enjoy each other and give each other pleasure and have fun and play together, just the two of you in the way that you love to do it, right? And so, but you have to teach each other, and that takes lots of time. It takes lots of time and communication, and you learn what feels good. And we're still learning. Like it's not like we have it all figured out.
That's the beauty of it.
It is the beauty of it. Like it changes over time. We get older, our bodies change. We go through all kinds of things. So it's not like it's a destination, it's a journey and we're still on it. But we know how to talk about it. We know how to, make requests of each other and all of that. So, you know, and I know that my kids will all learn in their own way, but they know I'm a resource for them because I have communicated with them all along. Even when they roll their eyes and even when they're like, I don't want to talk about this with you, I'm like, okay, but if you ever want to, I'm available.
It's so far from what actually parents are told to do, or just feel like it's just uncomfortable for everybody. Plus, we don't want to initiate this conversation with young people sometimes because we don't want to give them the wrong idea that it's okay to do it just to do it. So I appreciate the fact that you are not the type of parent who is going to hold back on this. And we need more parents doing it because we can't just think that it's a sin or it's not okay. Once again, we're going to give them the wrong idea, and we don't want to put ideas in their mind. Once again, it's already there. And if you let them just figure things out on their own, it might just go every possible way but the healthy way.
Right.
Yes, so I love that you are you're taking the step to initiate them into a healthier relationship with their sexuality, but also I feel that you are a pioneer in the fight against whatever expectations society is putting on us once again.
I have had the opportunity to heal a lot, and I know the difference that it makes. And so, right or wrong, my obsession is to help people enjoy their marriage, because I think when you have a husband and wife, it starts at the top. If they're enjoying their marriage, they're giving their kids a really great template to be able to create a relationship that is healing and cherishing and loving, and they will pass that down to their children as well.
That's right. That's right. It's just going to snowball down to
And I know I'm making mistakes. We're not doing everything right. I mean, my kids laugh at me because I'm like, you're gonna have trauma. That's the whole point of childhood is you get wounded, there's trauma, and you get to go into your adult relationships and heal it, right? I mean, everybody has to do it. So you can have the perfect parents who do all the right things and show you all the right, but no matter what, you're going to make mistakes. I think the best gift you can give your the best gift you can give your children is a template for how to do marriage well, how to do relationships well, so they can go into their adult relationships and heal all of their childhood trauma.
Do you talk about all of that in your podcast, The Secrets of Happily Ever After?
I do. I do. Yeah. I mean, Secrets of Happily Ever After, I've been podcasting for 7 years. It sounds crazy. And we've talked about all kinds of things on the podcast. We've had guests talk about those types of traumas and epigenetics and all of that. I've talked about what I've learned. There's still so much more to talk about.
So, where can they listen to you? Where the audience can reach out to you? And you mentioned that on your website, and I'm going to write all the everything in the description down below. But for your podcast,
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my podcast is called Secrets of Happily Ever After, and you can find it on any podcast listening app. But monicatanner.com is where everything is. So you can find out how to work with me, how to get to the podcast, how to get to my free content on Instagram, all of that, as well as badmarriageadvice.com. That's where you can get on the wait list to get my book when it comes out. And also lots of cool free gifts that go along with that as well.
that's awesome. Last question. If you had to give one advice to the newlywed listening today, what would it be?
Oh, this is such a great question. My best advice would be to learn how to communicate with each other well, learn how to cherish each other, because that's really what it comes down to. There's nothing, that there's nothing holding you together. There's nothing forcing you to be together. Like the real gift of marriage is fully developing yourself, allowing your partner to fully develop themselves, and choosing over time, through the good, through the bad, through the ugly, through the sad, through all of it, to be with each other and do it together. But there's nothing forcing you to do that. It's not out of obligation, it's out of choice. And that's how you will create not only the best emotional relationship, but also the best sexual relationship, is when it comes from choice.
Thank you so much for sharing this powerful and beautiful message with us. It's definitely, if you want to get in touch with Monica, please don't hesitate to reach out to her because it's incredible. And I feel that the passion behind your work transpire enormously through the conversation we had. I'm really hoping that the audience is going to get to feel it as well. Thank you so much for being with us today, taking the time to share with your wisdom again. It was a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. You're a wonderful host. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.